Hi again, everybody. Scott Costa, the publisher of TED Magazine. Thanks for joining me for another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast, both video and audio on this one. Today we have Jane Slade on. Jane is a subject matter expert on dark sky, which is a worldwide situation going on right now and people trying to raise awareness of it. And Michael Colligan, you know him. He's the crazy one from the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast that we do on Light It. He said that I should talk to Jane because we really need to learn more about this. We really need to know more about the right light and not just the bright light. And she's a great interview, and I was really happy to get a chance to sit down and talk to her and really dig into this topic for you. So I'm not even going to make you wait. Here she is, my interview on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast with Jane Slade. Jane Slade, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Subject matter expert in dark sky. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to go into this. This is really a huge issue. And I'm give me into some of your background on it, what you've done to kind of dive into this topic and kind of where it's taken you over the past few years.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Scott. It's great to be here, and I love talking about this topic. I really believe that if we can tip the awareness that this is actually within us to solve the issue of light pollution. This all started, actually, I was working with Rab Lighting at the time, and we were pitching an opportunity to speak at Light Fair. And I pitched 3 ideas. They were extremely boring. And then I had the 4th one, which was kind of in my back pocket. I didn't even think I would have said it. But I did. And actually, that was the one we went with. And lo and behold, Light Fair was like, yes, we accept this. And I thought, oh my, I really have to figure out if light really does impact wildlife. It was a hunch at the time. And basically, the internet exploded with information of deeply scientific articles. And that's one issue, is that science does not make it into the hands of the designers, because scientific articles are tough to read and designers don't have time to sit down and take that type of information in that format.
Right.
And so a lot of times information that is key gets left in a journal on a shelf somewhere. And so I'm really hoping that we can start to build the awareness and get this information into everybody's minds, because that's what we need to do to really get in control of the planetary light levels.
So tell me where we're at. You said this was 5 years ago. So how far have we come over the past 5 years? And then, of course, my follow-up, you're gonna answer this, but I'm gonna ask my follow-up up front, which is, how much further do we need to go? So where are we at this point?
Well, sadly, it's only gotten worse since that time. And that's because of LEDs. They lack any parameter. They're so small and light, and they're so powerful. And people love to play with light. Brightness is sexy. It sells. So the thing is that, we don't have a way yet of conversing about darkness being beautiful and elegant and poetic. And we really need to start bringing more vocabulary to darkness, more ways of spending time in dimmer light. But it's only gotten worse. And if you look at the light pollution levels, you can go to actually lightpollutionmap.info. I tell everyone to go. You'll see what's in your neighborhood. And places that would surprise you are at the same intensity level as cities like New York or Boston, little towns, little cities.
So you talk about light pollution, though, again, when you think pollution, again, you're thinking, plastic bottles in the ocean, and oh gosh, how are we going to fix it? Is this fixable? Is dark sky fixable? Have we kind of reached a tipping point? So where are we in terms of, can we still do something to positively impact, again, the Earth at this point?
We can absolutely solve this problem. That's what's so amazing. If we had a power outage right now, all the light would go out and we would have no light pollution. And of all the forms of climate change, this one is the easiest to solve. We have lighting controls. We have the amazing optics of LEDs. And yet we're not really harnessing that power because people don't think of light pollution as being an issue. That's why myself and Michael Colligan have started this podcast, amongst many other people who are helping us, Starving for Darkness, in order to get this word out so that people can start to realize it's not for no reason that we need the dark sky movement. It's actually incredibly important to the health of the planet and wildlife, which the health of wildlife, that factor is the most telling factor of the health of humans.
So so let's get into that then. You talked a little bit about, again, kind of the sexiness of bright. And I'll say that again, so fast story, hang in there with me for a second there,
Sure.
Jane. I'm watching, sports on television. My wife thinks I watch too much sports in here. I'm watching a game, a commercial comes on for this light that you basically replace your light bulb with. You know where I'm going, don't you?
I know this commercial.
This panel has like 140 something tiny LED lights on it. And they're like, put it in your closet. I'm like, what? Put it in your garage. It's like daytime at and so here's the thing, and I'm not trying to, some marketing people are like, brighter is so much better. And really it's more about right. So how do we start to, you know what I'm talking, you've seen this commercial, I'm sure that. So how are we breaking down this sort of barrier that has been pounded into people's heads for decades, plural, about brighter is better, to get them to understand that the right light is sufficient, will work for you, and it won't harm the environment?
Yeah, a light bulb like that, a single source trying to illuminate so brightly is going to create a lot of glare. Yeah. It's also going to skew your circadian rhythms because you're experiencing all that really bright light at night. And so there's no telling how a person will feel in that space from a single, it's basically like a floodlight screwing in. So it's going to make you feel bad probably at the time, and after it'll probably have triggered your circadian rhythms. So I think that we actually need to do a better job at educating, which means that we have to talk about the experience of light in terms of the adaptation of the eye, which sees at really low light levels and at really high light levels, but not at the same time. And so when you skew the adaptation to such a bright source, you actually create blindness to the darker light levels. So there's a lot that we need to do as lighting experts and educators to bring this information to people who don't really deal with lighting all the time, because it's not that obvious that a bright light isn't a great solution. It's really a very Band-Aid solution to what they're looking for.
So how do we do that though? Again, and I'm not trying to over put you on the spot here, but you have a customer who's basically saying, I have a warehouse, it's in a neighborhood that's okay, but not great. You certainly worry about, crime on the outside. And so the only way that I really feel safe at night is all my outdoor lighting is, like a prison yard, basically. What's the convincing to kind of say this is sufficient to make sure that folks aren't, going off the deep end and again, destroying the wildlife because this building next to this building next to this building becomes, city blocks of way too much light.
Yeah. I think it's all about how we incentivize the individual. And what I'll say is that everyone is scared of the dark, including vandals. And when you create a beacon, you actually you create the idea. So I don't know that more light is necessarily going to detract a person from coming. So there's a lot more psychological cues than just, more light is safer. Now we can see and catch the vandal on camera. Well, I don't really know if that's, more light is not a rope tying someone's hands behind their back. It really isn't stopping the problem.
So going down the path kind of, again, from a job specifier to a distributor to a contractor to finally then an end user, how can they all sort of work together to make sure right light is being used, the right controls are being used throughout the process? So, you're still making sales as a distributor of lighting. You're still selling stuff. You're still stocking the right products. But the end user customer is happy then with what light they have. And it's, then you get the opportunity for repeat business, or you get the opportunity for more happy people and going from there. How can that process work better so we're not installing the wrong light or too bright of light too often?
I would say definitely get photometric analysis done of existing ambient light.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not spending money on light that's already there. And then also not adding into light levels that are already supportive to the scene. So I think existing photometrics, as well as making sure that you are taking careful analysis of how much light you're putting in. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but LEDs are small and powerful. So, people always want to do 1-for-1, but it's maybe not necessary. So 1-for-1 replacements is an ideal. So there's basically, I think we need to really honor the art and science of illumination, which is best done with lighting experts and photometric analysis. But without that, we're kind of going in blind and doing surgery and hoping for the best. And, it's not, you really want to make sure you're doing everything down to a careful lumen package.
Okay, so let's get into the wildlife part of it then, and Colligan, who we both know, and you accurately describe him as the life of the party.
Yes.
In every room that he walks into, he really is. He's a character, but he pointed out he makes great points, and if he wasn't accurate, he wouldn't be a part of Light. He's fantastic, and he talked about a city that again. One night a year says, hey, we need to turn down the city lights for migrating birds, and it's like, I'm pretty sure the birds didn't make an appointment for that particular night, but okay. Mm-hmm. So how do we, what's the impact? What's the smart way that this, we can maintain wildlife, which is essential for our entire ecosystem, and make sure that we still have the right light at the right times and people are comfortable with what's going on?
Yeah. And, at no point am I ever saying we don't need light at night, but because we do need to absolutely light for human activity, and light does provide safety. It's just not your catch-all blanket safety response. And so what we really need to do is start assessing how much light is needed and not overlighting unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. And so there's a story I like to tell, which is actually about the Sundial Bridge in California. And they actually hired an architect, Santiago Calatrava from Spain, to build and design this $20 million footbridge so that no part of the bridge touched the river below, so as to protect the salmon. Well, they did it, and it was beautiful. They even included glass pavers so that so that the sunlight could still penetrate the bridge, and then the temperature of the water wouldn't change. And then guess what they did? They lit it up. They underlit the glass pavers with LED lighting.
Yeah.
Subsequently, they made such a beacon of the salmon from by the predators that they actually almost killed the entire salmon population. And so it's the community wanted to treasure and honor the salmon, and it's just all too easy. So there's a lack of awareness that is extremely dangerous for wildlife, that even in the best of intentions, it's just all too easy to do.
So how do we balance that? Pretty versus dangerous? There are those out there who are like, I just want pretty. And don't get me wrong, in this particular community, they were certainly worried about the wildlife and worried about the salmon. But there are those out there that are far, is it 50-50? No, there are those out there that are like 90-10. I'm more worried about pretty than I am about, again, wildlife. How do we balance? How do we convince people, kind of, for lack of a better term, punch them in the head and say, no, look, that looks really good. And convince them that it does, so we can move forward with a great compromise on this.
I look at city skylines, and they're beautiful, but they're illuminated constantly. They're at the facades, or there's rainbow facades, and this member is detailed with LED lighting. And
great point. Yep.
It's like having your Christmas tree up every day.
Yeah.
Let's have a festival of lights where for a week, maybe, I'm not all for the triggering of wildlife, but if we limit it to a day or even a week to have really special light installations. But, at this point, how excited can I be about another illuminated facade or another illuminated bridge? It can be very beautiful, but the constancy of it really, I don't know how impressed people are all the time by it. I think it's pretty, but it's also fading into the background. And so if we actually separated it out by making it a special occasion, that it was worth it to use the light on that special occasion. But we're just kind of spending and wasting and spending and wasting all the time. Yeah.
And the waste is even in the energy too. Everybody, we sell LED lighting as it's energy efficient, but if you're using, if you're blasting it 24/7, you're really not saving any energy. Is that correct?
True. And because LEDs are so cheap, we've added more light back than we did before. So we actually are losing our benefit now in terms of energy.
And so where do we go from here? Where is I'm a lighting distributor. I'm an electrical distributor. I sell lighting. Where do we go in terms of, okay, how I need to learn more about this dark sky. I need to learn more about the right light and the right situations. I'm a lighting specialist at a distributor, but I still should probably know more. Where do I find more information? Where do I continue to kind of grow with this ongoing dark sky I don't want to call it a movement. It's unfair to call it that, but process to get things right again.
Yes, there's some amazing organizations. There's the International Dark Sky Association. They were founded about 40 years ago. They're out west in, I believe it's Tucson. And they are an organization that is to protect the dark skies. They have amazing initiatives such as creating dark sky places all over the world. And so those are places that you can go and vacation to, re-experience what it is to truly experience a dark sky. When you're really in a dark sky environment, starlight is enough to create a shadow.
Yeah.
And that level of adaptation down to low light is really good for the muscle of your pupil.
Yeah.
So we're never really experiencing bright light. We're never really experiencing dark light. But so the International Dark Sky Association is an amazing group. Come listen to our podcast, Starving for Darkness. We'll be interviewing many people who are part of the movement. And our great hope is really to connect a larger conversation together so that we're not working in silos. And so that's a wonderful place to start learning about different people who are moving through this movement. And so, I know that there's LS Evolve, which is an initiative that Michael is doing with Get a Grip. So that's a way to start learning about what are the causes and effects of light pollution.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some great sources there.
Definitely. And he's going to do once a month. He's going to do a dark sky podcast for our lighted website too, which is good as we continue to move forward. And I'm not saying that's enough, but at least it's a start. And I'm hopeful that again, the work that you're doing, the work that he's doing, the work that hopefully everybody can do together can get, again, the right light instead of the bright light. So Jane Slade, I appreciate you joining me to talk about this. And I wish you the best moving forward. And if there's any help you need, give me a shout. Because we've got to move forward in the right direction on this. It just makes sense. So thanks for joining me. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was great getting a chance to meet you and talk to you. I do appreciate it. Quick notes. Hang with me here, Jane. If you want to talk to me about this podcast, Dark Sky, you want to talk about other podcasts or TED Magazine things or tedmag.com, whatever. Again, 2 ways that you can contact me. Give me a call on the phone. It's right there. I answer it all by myself. I don't have people working for me. 314-812-5311. You can send me an email, scosta, SCOSTA, at NAD.org. I'd love to hear from you guys about anything. We can trade ideas about dark sky, about anything that's out there. But until we get a chance to talk again, thank you, everybody, for listening and for watching Distributed with TED Magazine.